All right, I am back out here in the shop, driving myself mad with this thing. Where we left off was the latch valves and trying to figure out this thermostat plug. We've established that the 10R60 valve body does not have a thermostat. It is just a constant plug. So let me start off with the latch valve. I just want to give a quick illustration here of what's been done. So again, this top one, this latch valve goes to the A clutch. And you see how that end is all chewed up. And then the retaining clip matches. So if we come over here to the shop computer, man, I love this little thing. i5, backlit keyboard, and a touchscreen. What else could I ask for in the shop computer? But anyways, for Ford 10R60, 10R80, and GM, blah, 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 the valve stem, the valve spring stem, and the exhaust gap in the retaining clip make contact with one another, causing raised edges, burrs, and other damage on the stem. This damage can lead to spring entanglement, improper stroking of the valve, and potentially bore wear, which can result in failures and burnt clutches. Prevent stem failure, blah, blah, blah. Let's just skip straight to the highlights. Reinforces the valve stem to prevent future wear. Less expensive than replacement valve kits. Drop-in zip valves. All right, so to put in this latch valve kit, the A-clutch latch valve, you'll see how it rides right up against that retainer clip / exhaust port. And that's how the end gets chewed up. They should not look like that. They should look like, you get the drift. If we come down here, I have got 3 freshly circumcised, yes, your boy really did say that, latch valves right here. I want to show you the difference. So now, instead of the valve stem tip riding directly against that retainer, we are going to have, and I ground them all down to about 100 thousandths. Did a nice little chamfer and then polished them up with some emery cloth. So now what's going to happen, instead of that valve stem tip contacting the clip directly, we are going to have these little sleeves that they then fit into. They don't have to be exactly 100 thousandths. They can be plus about 10 thousandths, minus 10 thousandths, as long as they fit and bottom out in this sleeve. And then you will come over here. The OE spring is not going to fit, but don't worry, they give you new springs. They are colored. Certain springs go with certain latch valves, so make sure you pay attention to the instructions. But the new spring will fit in there, and then it can sit there and shuttle back and forth. And instead of the valve stem tip hitting the retainer clip, it's going to be this hardened sleeve. So it's not going to wear itself out anymore. That's for the latch valves. If we come down here to this cooler, actually, I'll save that for last. Just go over the other 2 things I'm going to be doing to the upper valve body. We can come up here to the main pressure regulator valve kit, which is going to be this guy right here. This is the replacement. I'll highlight it in a second. Where in the outboard spool area of the main pressure regulator valve is common in listed GM, Ford, and 10-speeds. This wear minimizes line pressure control, resulting in delayed shift engagement, poor shift quality, and burnt clutches, where the inboard spool can lead to converter apply issues. Installing the drop-in Sonax main pressure regulator valve kit eliminates the leakage of line pressure to exhaust with the incorporation of an extended front valve spool. This valve spool is 270% longer than the OE spool, allowing the valve to actuate in unworn areas of the bore. The O-ringed end plug provides a positive seal and prevents critical signal fluid from leaking to exhaust. So if we come over here, this spool is what they were talking about. See how that spool at the end is much longer. So it's going to completely fill that bore, and it's going to provide a much better seal. They give you a replacement spring on both ends. And the part that I was excited about, I was surprised to find that the Transgo kit did not come with this, but an O-ringed end plug. So instead of putting this regular solid plug back in, and I want to show you something. You see those marks? It's kind of like ghosting on the end plug. That comes from the fluid pressure actually trying to push out of the bore through whatever teeny tiny microscopic surface is left between the bore and the plug, and it's trying to exhaust past the plug. So you put the O-ringed end plug in there, it's going to completely seal that. You're not going to have to worry about that anymore. That's something I set the 4L65 valve body up with, put O-ringed end plugs and everything. Love that mod. I recommend it for literally anything you can find it for. Last thing is going to be the Sonax TCC regulator valve spring. Enlisted form and GM transmit. You know what? I'm not going to read all that shit. In a nutshell, this right here is the TCC regulator valve. This little spring right here is prone to fatigue, and it can actually break. So they give you new springs. They come in a pack of 5. You only need 1. They're a little more stout. I should have took one out of the package, but if you look, the coils are actually slightly thicker. It's just an overall bit of an improvement, something you're not going to have to worry about having a failure with later down the road. That's all we're doing to the upper valve body, but I said the best part for last, and this update is going to be kind of lengthy for me trying to explain it. This cooler circuit, I talked to one of the guys at Transgo. He is of the opinion to just leave the factory plug-in. There's no thermostat. There is not, and I talked to him, I studied this valve body. There is not a split, like I was talking about before, where it feeds a certain portion of the fluid through the cooler and then exhausts another portion back through the transmission. That doesn't happen. It has full cooler flow. However, remember I was talking about it changes the channels, the passages, when I run the plug that I had. Well, of course, I got away from it. Here we go. So with the factory plug, I'm going to show you guys something. And I have the lower half of the valve body over here. If you guys thought that this was scary, guess what? Surprise, there's 2 of them. I'm going to save this for the second portion. But I got the new separator plate out, and it's okay if you get a little bit of fluid on it. It's normally supposed to be lubricated when you put it in anyways. You just don't want to scratch or ding it up. So we're going to start right here at this passage. You guys try to stay with me because this is really fucking confusing. So the fluid goes, it actually starts somewhere way over here on the front half of the oh yeah, there's more maze on the other side of the lower valve body too. Surprise again. But it finds its way to here. The objective we're trying to get to is this hole right here. That port goes straight into the case and feeds directly to the heat exchanger. So we're trying to get there. And what I've found is this kind of looks like it's a deal where there's more than one way to skin a cat. With the stock valve, we'll show you. Try to keep up. The fluid is going to start here. It is then going to, all you got is this little basket right here. It is going to make a turn, come back up through this hole where it will push and open this a little spring-loaded check valve. It then comes down through this channel. I'll lift it up so you guys can see. It is going to come through that channel, jump back up through this hole, which is this one over here on this side. It's going to go back down through. It goes through right here. It's going to find its way here to this middle slot. So this is the feed for this plug. With the factory plug, the fluid will go. Remember, I told you that little groove that's machined into the plug is what's allowing the fluid to flow. That fluid is going to go straight over to this opening right here. It is going to jump through this slot right here. You'll notice these two little pinholes. Those little pinholes are tied into that main center channel, which is right under here I just showed you. They have pressure regardless. But that fluid is going to come through this port, which if we come over here, is this one right here. And it goes right here, and it looks like it dead ends. However, it is then going to come back through this opening, and you'll notice there's a wall there. So these two openings are separated. It's going to come through this small one up here, which is over here on this side. It's going to jump through that hole, and it is going to feed right in there. But with this, the stock 10R60 plug, this is blocked off from either side. It doesn't go anywhere. So when that fluid jumps up through that little hole, it is then going to make a turn, come up through this opening here, which if we come over to this side, starts right here, ends right here, which is this little opening. And then if we come over to the plate over here, that little opening is going to bring us straight to that port I was talking about into the cooler. So we have flow that way. If I take the 10R60 plug out and I put this the thermostat delete plug, here's what happens. It has now blocked off that slot, this one right here. But again, I followed the passages. It just changes the direction that it changes the passage that it takes. So instead of going from here to there, it will now go from there to here, which are those two openings once again. And you will see that it is now blocked off. It can only go here. It can't go over here. It can't go over here. So we've got pressure here, where if we come over, it hits both of these openings simultaneously. If we follow the little opening, that brings us back to this slot, which will now be blocked with that new longer plug. However, it still gives pressure right here, which is then going to go to that same little opening, which is going to bring us, get off of there, right here. And once again, straight back to the same opening that goes to the cooler. So either of those plugs don't feel bad if you guys couldn't keep up with that. I had to study it like 10 times. It's really fucking confusing. But it looks like it gives us the flow to the cooler we need either way. One thing that I did notice, if you look right there, the factory 10R60 plug, see how it's partially blocking that flow? It can still go through there, but if I were to either run the longer plug or I were to block this stock 10R60 plug fully inboard, it looks like it would give better flow. So for the sake of just having to find out, I spent $70 on this plug. I've got it anyways. I'm going to try running this plug. Worst case, I'll have to drop the valve body back out. That's a pretty shitty worst case. But it looks like it would work either way. But doing it this way or blocking the stock plug fully inboard looks like it would give us more flow. So anybody has any input on that, drop a comment. But I'm feeling pretty positive about running it that way. But anyways, I'm going to finish up the latch valves. I'm going to get the pressure regulator ready. I'm going to give this thing the mineral spirits bath I've been talking about for like 3 videos now and throw it all back together. Then we will jump over to the real fun part, which is the lower valve body. So stay tuned.